Welcome to Lesson 11 from Chapter 4, the last lesson. The essential question, how can I communicate multiplication? So by the end of this, do you feel like you know how to communicate multiplication? Okay, the last lesson is multiply across zeros. It says you can use the distributive property or partial products to multiply across zeros. So this is two different ways, and of course you can do it the vertical way. Okay. Irvin's braces cost $108 each month. How much will Irvin's parents pay in 6 months? I guess it's not Irvin, I guess it's Ivan. All right, Ivan. Well, let's see. Let's first estimate so we can get a close number. So 108 is close to 100 if we're rounding to the greatest place value. And 6 times 1 is 6. Same amount of zeros. So our answer should be around 600. Okay, and our answer should be bigger, right? It should be greater than 600. Okay, so this is how you do it with partial products. So remember, you break it up into expanded form. So 108. 6 times 100, 6 times 8. Okay, 6 times 100 is 600. And 6 times 8 is 48. Okay, and then you add that, 648. Okay, now let's look at this another way. Okay, first we'll do 6 times 8, which we know is 48. And then there's a 0 here. So 6 times 0, 0. And now the last place value, 100. 6 times 100 is 600. And add these up. 8, 4, 6. And we got the same answer. And what about the regular vertical way? 108 times 6. Instead of writing these all out separately, we can write it together with regrouping. Okay, 6 times 8 is 48, so leave the 4. Regroup. 6 times 0 is 0, but we add this 4, so 4. And then 6 times 1, 648. So Ivan's parents will pay $648 in 6 months. The answer, $648, is close to the estimate of 600. Okay. All right, let's flip it over. Example 2. If 3 trees are each 2,025 years old, what is the total age of the trees? Wow. So each one is this amount, so we need to multiply it times 3. So first we'll estimate, okay, 2,025 is close to 2,000. 3 times 2 is 6, and then count the zeros. 1, 2, 3 zeros. So 1, 2, 3 zeros. 6,000. Okay. Now this is showing us the regular vertical way to do it. Multiply the ones first. So 3 times 5, and we know that's 15 ones. So we regroup 15 ones as 1 10 and 5 ones. So 5 ones and add the 1 10. Multiply the 10. So 3 times 2. Okay, so that equals 6 tens, but we have to add the regroup 10. So we have to add that one in. So 6 plus 1 equals 7. 7. You see that nice and clearly? Okay, now we have nothing. We didn't need to regroup because we didn't hit 10, so we'll just leave it. Okay, now multiply the hundreds. So 3 times 0 equals 0. So the reason there's a 0 here is there wasn't anything we had to regroup from before, because 7 wasn't big enough to regroup, so we just leave it. Okay, and now the thousands. 3 times 2, so 3 times 2 thousands equals 6,000. Right? 3 times 2 equals 6. So our answer is 6,075 years old. So the total age of the tree is 6,075 years old. Check for reasonableness. The answer, 6,075, is close to our estimate of 6,000. And in honor of the trees, I drew myself being really tiny and looking up at these giant trees. I actually have been to the famous redwood forest in California where the trees are super tall, and it was very awesome. I felt super, super tiny. Okay, before you go, let's just look at that building on essential question, page 264. This is kind of a hard one, so I'm glad we're doing it together now, because I know if we leave it for in class, everyone's going to be asking me. Okay, why do the products of multi-digit numbers with zeros and one-digit numbers sometimes have zeros in them and sometimes have no zeros? So what it's asking is, how come the answer, the product's the answer, sometimes has a zero here and sometimes it won't? Okay, well, let's look at the difference here. So these numbers are very similar. They both have a zero in the middle. Okay, but let's look at 6 times 2 is 12. So we have to regroup. And then even though 6 times 0 is 0, we have to add that 1. So this becomes a 1 instead of a 0. And then 3 times 6 is 18. Okay, but let's look over here. 6 times 1 is 6. So this isn't big enough to regroup, so we're not carrying anything over here. So now 6 times 0 is just plain 0. And then, of course, 18. Okay, so if you had to regroup the place value before, so like this, like we had to do with 12, then even if there is a 0 in the place value, your product will be 0. So even if there's a 0 here, you will add on the regrouped amount. Okay, does that make sense? So if you have to regroup the place value right before the one you're looking at, even though your answer, the product, is going to be 0, because 6 times 0 is 0, you still have to add on the regrouped amount. So that's why sometimes there's a 0 and sometimes there isn't. Okay, see you in class.